The answer to raising mentally strong children isn't found in genetics, luck, or external circumstances. The truth is, it lies within you, in the habits you cultivate as a parent each day. Over the years, through extensive experience working with countless families, I have discovered that there are 7 key habits that make all the difference in whether a child grows to be vulnerable or mentally resilient. Have you ever wondered why some children seem to possess incredible mental strength while others crumble at the first sign of difficulty? Why are there some who face challenges with courage while others retreat at the smallest obstacle? I want to warn you. What I'm about to share with you will challenge many of your current beliefs about parenting. You will discover that some things you believe are protecting your children are actually weakening them, and you'll learn that developing mental strength in a child has nothing to do with being harsh or cold, quite the opposite, in fact. By the end of this video, you will not only know these 7 transformative habits, but you will also have the specific tools to implement them starting tomorrow. Because, as I always say, knowledge without action is useless, and action without knowledge can be dangerous. The first habit that makes a difference between parents who raise mentally strong children and those who don't may seem contradictory, but it's grounded in perfect neurobiological logic. It's about validating your child's emotions without overprotecting them from the natural consequences of life. Let me explain what happens in your child's brain when they experience intense emotions. When a child feels sadness, frustration, fear, or anger, their limbic system, the primitive part of the brain responsible for emotions, gets activated. At that moment, the amygdala sends alarm signals throughout the nervous system. Now, as parents, we have 2 options. The first, the most natural and instinctive response, is to rush in and rescue our child from that uncomfortable emotion. It's okay, my love, don't be sad. Come here, let me fix this. There's no need to be angry. While this response comes from pure love, it sends a dangerous message to the child's brain. It teaches them that difficult emotions are bad, that they can't handle them on their own, and that someone will always rescue them. The second option, which is characteristic of parents who raise mentally strong children, is to validate the emotion and allow the child to process it. I see you're really angry because your sister took your toy. I understand that you're feeling sad because your friend didn't want to play with you. It's normal to feel afraid in this new situation. What happens neurologically when we validate without rescuing? We're helping to strengthen the child's prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain responsible for emotional regulation and decision making. It's like we're doing mental exercises for that part of the brain. Let me give you a practical example. Your 8-year-old comes crying because a classmate said something hurtful. The natural impulse is to say, don't worry about it, they don't know what they're talking about. Or worse, you might say, I'll talk to their parents tomorrow. A parent who raises mentally strong children would say, I see those words really hurt you. It's normal to feel that way when someone says something mean. Tell me, how do you think you could handle it if this happens again? The difference here is huge. In the first case, you're teaching your child that emotions are enemies, things to avoid, and that there will always be someone else to solve their problems. In the second case, you're teaching your child that emotions are valuable information and that they have the internal resources to manage them. But beware, validating emotions doesn't mean allowing inappropriate behavior. If your child is angry and decides to hit their sibling, you validate the emotion, but you also set clear limits on the behavior. I understand you're angry, and that's okay, but hitting isn't allowed. Let's find a better way to express your anger. Neuroscience tells us something fascinating. When a child learns to name and validate their emotions, the activation of the amygdala decreases, and the connections with the prefrontal cortex strengthen. In other words, you're literally building a more resilient brain. Before moving on to the second habit, I'd like to ask you a favor. If you found this content valuable for your family, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for joining me on this journey toward more conscious parenting and raising stronger children. Each like tells me that this message is reaching parents who truly want to raise mentally strong kids, and subscribing allows me to continue researching and sharing tools that can transform our children's lives. Plus, when you subscribe and activate the notification bell, you ensure you never miss a strategy that can help you on this beautiful but challenging path of parenthood. Now, let's talk about the second habit. It's one of the most powerful, but also one of the hardest to implement in today's culture, which is obsessed with results and instant success. Parents who raise mentally strong children teach their kids to value the process, the effort, and the learning above the final result. Let me share a story that profoundly impacted me in my practice. A mother came to me with her 12-year-old daughter. The girl was academically brilliant, always getting top grades, but she had suddenly started refusing to go to school. The reason? For the first time in her life, she had failed a math exam and her world had fallen apart. During our conversation, I discovered that this mother, with the best of intentions, had built her daughter's self esteem around her results. You're so smart. I'm so proud of your grades. You're the best in your class. When the results didn't come through, the girl felt like she had lost all value as a person. So, what's happening neurologically when we praise only the results? We're activating the brain's reward system in a very specific way. The child learns that their worth as a person depends on receiving that external validation. Their brain literally becomes addicted to external praise and develops what we call a fixed mindset. In contrast, when we praise effort, perseverance, the strategies used, or the ability to learn from mistakes, we strengthen the neural connections related to resilience and what Carol Dweck calls a growth mindset. Let me give you concrete examples of how to make this shift. Instead of saying, yeah, you're so smart when your child gets a good grade, try saying, I can see you worked really hard studying and that effort paid off. Instead of saying, yo, Cap, you're the best player on the team, Cope say, I love seeing how much you've improved your skills with all that practice. But here's the tricky part for many parents. We also need to change our language when things don't go well. When your child fails an exam, instead of comforting them with, it's okay, you're really smart, try saying, let's review what study strategies we can improve for next time. One of the most powerful moments you can create as a parent is helping your child find the learning in each failure. When my youngest son was 10 years old, he lost a swimming competition he had high hopes for. Instead of consoling him with empty phrases, we sat down that night to analyze what he had learned from the experience. He told me that he got really nervous before the competition, and that affected his performance. Together, we developed breathing and visualization strategies. 6 months later, not only had he improved in swimming, but he had also learned anxiety management tools that he would carry with him for the rest of his life. The brain's neuroplasticity is extraordinary in children. Every time we face a challenge as an opportunity to learn rather than just seeing it as a failure, we're literally rewiring their brains for resilience. But there's a common mistake to avoid. This doesn't mean we can't celebrate achievements. Of course, we can feel proud when our children reach their goals. The key is in how we do it. We celebrate the journey, the effort, the skills developed, not just the trophy. The third habit that distinguishes parents who raise mentally strong children is perhaps the most counterintuitive of all: allowing your child to experience frustration and teaching them specific tools to manage it. In today's world, frustration has become the number one enemy of childhood. As parents, we rush to remove any obstacle that might cause discomfort for our children. If the puzzle is too hard, we solve it for them. If the video game is too complicated, we take over. If the homework is tough, we do it ourselves. But here's the problem: frustration is not the enemy, it's the personal trainer of mental strength. Every time we shield our children from experiencing and overcoming frustration, we're robbing them of the chance to develop one of the most important mental muscles: tolerance for discomfort. Let me explain what happens in the brain when we experience frustration. When we face an obstacle that we can't solve immediately, a complex neural network is activated involving the prefrontal cortex, the anterior cingulate gyrus, and several regions of the limbic system. Although uncomfortable, this activation is absolutely necessary for developing perseverance and creativity. Neuroimaging studies show something fascinating. Children who learn to tolerate frustration develop a stronger, better connected, and more efficient prefrontal cortex. It's as though every well managed experience of frustration is a workout for the brain. But here's the key: allowing frustration doesn't mean abandoning your child to their fate. Parents who raise mentally strong children act as emotional coaches, not problem solvers. Let me share a story a mother told me during a session. Her 7-year-old son was trying to build a tall tower with blocks, but it kept falling down. The more it fell, the more frustrated he became. The mother's instinct was to help him or suggest that he build something simpler. But she remembered our previous conversation and decided to try a different approach. She sat next to him and said, I see that the tower keeps falling down, and that's frustrating you. Frustration is that uncomfortable feeling we get when things don't go the way we want, right? The boy nodded. You know, frustration is like a very strict coach. It's here to teach us something. What do you think it's trying to teach you? After thinking for a while, the boy said, maybe I need to make the base wider. The mother validated his reflection, saying, that's such a smart observation. Would you like to try that strategy? What happened next was magical. Not only did he build the tallest tower he had ever made, but he also learned something much more valuable: that frustration holds useful information and that he had the internal resources to process it and act accordingly. Teaching children to manage frustration requires specific tools. One of the most powerful tools is the pause breathing technique. When you see your child getting frustrated, teach them to stop, take 3 deep breaths, and ask themselves, What is this situation trying to teach me? Another important tool is reframing. Instead of seeing frustration as the enemy, help your child see it as valuable information. My frustration is telling me that this problem is important to me and that I need to think of new strategies. It's also crucial to teach the difference between productive and destructive frustration. Frustration is productive when it motivates us to search for new solutions, try harder, or ask for help in a constructive way. It's destructive when it leads us to give up, explode emotionally, or blame others. One exercise I recommend to parents is creating moments of controlled frustration. Set up challenges for your child that you know will be difficult for them, but still within their capabilities if they make an effort and persevere. It could be a slightly harder puzzle than usual, a multi step recipe, or even a challenging educational video game. The key is to be present as an emotional coach during these moments, not to solve the problem for them, but to help them process the emotions that arise and develop coping strategies. The fourth habit is one that's essential but often misunderstood: encouraging progressive autonomy without emotionally abandoning our children. Parents who raise mentally strong children understand that excessive dependence is the silent enemy of mental strength. I often see teenagers and young adults in my practice who struggle with paralyzing anxiety, even when faced with simple decisions in life. Why? Because for years, their parents, with the best intentions, made all the decisions for them. When a child never has the opportunity to choose, make mistakes, and learn from them, their brain doesn't develop the neural networks needed for autonomous decision making. It's like having a muscle that you never use. It atrophies. Neuroscience shows that the prefrontal cortex, responsible for decision making, planning, and executive control, strengthens precisely when it's used to solve problems and make age appropriate decisions. But here's the art: autonomy must be progressive and developmentally appropriate. A 3-year-old can choose between two breakfast options but cannot decide whether to go to school. A 15-year-old can manage their study schedule but might still need guidance on some aspects of their social life. Let me share an example that transformed a family's life. They had a 10-year-old son who was brilliant but struggled with basic organization. Every morning was a drama, as the mother had to remind him of everything from brushing his teeth to packing his school bag. We implemented what I call scaffolded autonomy. The first week, the mother helped him create a visual checklist of morning tasks. By the second week, he was responsible for following the checklist, but she reminded him to check it. By the third week, he was completely in charge of his routine, and the mother only intervened if he asked for help. In just 1 month, not only had he become autonomous in his morning routine, but he had also developed a sense of competence and pride that carried over to other areas of his life. The key is recognizing which decisions and responsibilities are appropriate for each age and temperament. For instance, an introverted child might need more time to develop social autonomy, while a more impulsive child might need more structure in decision making. The fifth habit is one of the most challenging for many parents in our time: setting clear, consistent boundaries while maintaining a strong emotional connection with your children. Parents who raise mentally strong children understand that boundaries aren't walls that restrict, but structures that provide security and freedom to grow. In my work, I've observed two equally harmful extremes. On one hand, there are parents who confuse love with permissiveness and avoid setting boundaries out of fear that their children won't love them. On the other hand, there are parents who enforce boundaries through fear, threats, or emotional coldness. Neuroscience teaches us something fascinating about boundaries. Children's brains literally need structure to develop healthily. When a child lives in an environment with clear, consistent boundaries, their nervous system feels secure, which allows their prefrontal cortex to develop properly. But here's the key: effective boundaries aren't imposed with blind authority. They're established with love and explained in a way that's appropriate for the child's age. Let me tell you about a mother who came to my practice feeling completely exhausted. Her 8-year-old daughter had taken control of the household, deciding what was for dinner, when she would go to bed, and what TV shows to watch. The mother said, "I don't want to be like my father, who was very authoritarian. I want my daughter to feel free and loved." I explained something that completely changed her perspective. Children don't interpret the absence of boundaries as love, they interpret it as a lack of care. When boundaries aren't set, the child receives the message that their parents don't care enough to protect or guide them. We implemented what I call the firm, fair, just, immediate, related, and maintainable method for setting boundaries. Fair means the boundary should be age appropriate and relevant to the situation. You can't ask a 4-year-old to sit still for 2 hours, but you can ask them not to hit their sibling. Immediate means that consequences should be applied as close to the moment the boundary is crossed as possible. This is crucial for the brain to link action with consequence. When boundaries are connected with love and logic, children feel safe and learn to respect them. while still maintaining a healthy emotional connection with their parents. The sixth habit that defines parents who raise mentally strong children is teaching specific problem solving skills rather than solving problems for them. This habit is crucial because in adulthood, the ability to face and solve challenges autonomously will be one of the key predictors of mental well being and success. In my practice, I frequently see young adults who are brilliant but struggle with severe anxiety, not because they lack intelligence or external resources, but because they never developed confidence in their own ability to solve problems. Their parents, with the best intentions, solved too many problems for them during childhood, leaving them unprepared for the complexities of adult life. Neuroplasticity teaches us that the brain strengthens when we practice problem solving. Each time a child faces a problem, considers options, makes a decision, and experiences the consequences, they're literally building and reinforcing the neural networks responsible for critical thinking and conflict resolution. Parents who raise mentally strong children act as problem solving coaches, not as problem solvers. The difference is subtle but transformative. Let me share an example. A mother came to me worried about her 11-year-old son, who was having repeated issues with a classmate who bothered him during recess. The mother's first reaction was to speak to the teacher and the other child's parents. But after our conversation, she decided to try a different approach. Instead of solving the problem for him, she sat down with her son and said, I see that this situation with your classmate is affecting you a lot. It seems like you have a problem that needs a solution. What options do you think you have? At first, the boy responded with the typical, I don't know, you tell me what to do. But the mother persisted, saying, I trust that you can come up with some options. Take your time. After thinking for a while, the boy came up with three possible solutions: ignore the classmate, speak to the teacher himself, or try to talk directly to the boy. The mother didn't judge the options as right or wrong. Instead, she helped him think about the possible consequences of each one. In the end, the boy chose to talk to the classmate assertively, and if that didn't work, he would speak to the teacher. The situation was resolved, and the boy gained confidence in his ability to handle difficult situations.